I'm Corey Strock, and this is my co-host Lynnete Hapgood. We're here today with school board candidate Sharon Lampel.
Incumbent.
Incumbent and school board candidate Sharon Lampel. So Sharon, you're the incumbent who is running for re-election, the only one who's running in a race that's competitive. So why don't you tell us first, why did you choose to rerun for the school board?
I've been on the board for 2 years, and being a lifelong educator and working in education, I've done a lot of work on the other side of the dais, working directly for the school board as top-level administration in a school district. So getting on the board and seeing the work from the other side and directing the superintendent and working with CSBA for the past 2 years, I've learned an awful lot. And as you know, most educators are lifelong learners. We're incredible nerds, and we love to learn and learn and learn. You know, you just glom onto an idea and you got to find out more and more about it. So I've been doing this work for 2 years, and I'm very pleased with the direction that the board has been going and the school district, the direction that we give staff, and that they follow through on our direction. And I've only been doing it for 2 years because I took a midterm seat the last time I ran.
Right, someone left and then
Yes.
you ran off, I think, against one of their...
Against Chris Cunningham, yeah.
Right, that's right.
Yeah. So I've been on the board only for 2 years, and I really enjoy the work. I enjoy sharing all this educational knowledge that I have for, let's just say, more than 30 years.
So do you feel then that that's kind of one of your strengths then, in that the other members of the school board, I don't believe any of them work at a school, right?
Well, Michaela Vergara, who's not running for her seat, she's dropping off the board.
She worked at a school?
Yes, she's a teacher in Dublin. I'll give you a little bit about my background. So I started as a teacher in New York City. So some school districts, the 6th grade is at the elementary level, and other school districts it's at the middle school level. So I've taught a variety of subjects and grades, kindergarten through 6th grade. After teaching in New York for about 10 years, I looked at all the teachers around me, and they were totally burnt out and hated coming to work every day. And I didn't want to get like that because I love what I do.
So let's go back to, you were in New York, you visited California, and
Visited California
amazing, and then you came here.
said, I'm going to live here someday, and 5 years later I moved to California, and I was teaching in Fremont. I moved to administration as a vice principal in Fremont, and then moved to San Lorenzo as the principal of an elementary school, a very large elementary school.
It's K through 5, right, probably.
In San Lorenzo, yes, it was K through 5. In Fremont, it was K through 6. So I was a principal for about 5 years, and during that time, I had sat on the district's negotiating team. And when our HR person left, and the superintendent said, I need an insider, I thought, oh, I'm on the negotiations team, I know how to do HR. So I applied for the job and got it, and realized on day one I knew nothing.
Well, that's where being a lifelong learner comes in, right?
So, quick learning curve, and I worked in HR for 11 years. Time for a change. So right now, after 10 years in San Lorenzo, there was a restructuring process going on. So it was a good time to move and get a little bit more diverse experience in HR. So I moved to Alameda Unified.
Okay.
And superintendent left, some other restructuring going on. Now I'm doing compliance, which is federal and state rules and regulations for how we spend our money, different plans. This is a very interesting time to be doing this because of the local control funding formula, which is how we get our, the local control funding formula is how school districts get their money from the state. Okay. It's a total change from the way we used to. It used to be something called revenue limit, and we would get this chunk of money, and then there were all these extra little chunks that they would give us. And all those little chunks in the educational world, we call them categorical because they have rules. There's general fund, there's no rules for the general fund, and then the categoricals. So the categoricals had all these strings attached to them, and you would have to, each little fund had its own set of rules. So the state redid everything. Now it's called local control funding formula. We still have some categoricals, but fewer.
Sure. So now, as opposed to getting a single chunk and then a ton of small chunks, you get a larger chunk and a few smaller chunks.
We get a larger chunk, and the whole formula has changed. It's very dependent on the school district's low socioeconomic, I'm trying to think what else, which is determined by free and reduced lunch rates.
That determines how much money you get?
Yes. You get extra money for having low socioeconomic students in your district. Well, we do have students in Lammersville that qualify for those funds.
Sure.
I think you're aware that Lammersville Elementary is a Title I school. That's what that means. That they have a certain percentage of...
I was not aware.
You know, I can keep talking about this stuff for weeks. Lammersville Elementary School is a Title I school. And they get extra funds from the state and federal government for having lower socioeconomic students.
So those would be the categorical funds, so we're going to get the local control fund, and then they're going to get a categorical fund that says this fund has to go to Lammersville, and that's money that Lammersville will get, that Bethany, Altamont, West...
Well, the Title I portion of it. We do have low socioeconomic students at all of our schools.
Sure.
Okay? And there's also extra money for English learners. So... there's a lot of changing going on. I'm going through a lot of training on exactly this right now.
At work?
Yeah, at work. I'm actually headed up to Sacramento for a conference on this stuff. It sounds a little dry, but it's actually it's interesting if you know how the old formula worked and what we have to do. I don't know if you were involved last year with the district developing what's called the LCAP. We live in acronyms in education. The LCAP is... what exactly does it stand for? It's the plan. It's the Local Control Accountability Plan. And it's the plan that the school district has to submit to the state for how we're going to spend that LCFF, Local Control Funding Formula, money. And its rules and regulations and unduplicated amounts, because you get extra for the low socioeconomic and the English learners, but you can't count them twice. So it's...
so if you're low economic and an English learner, you don't get double the money?
Right.
That's cold blood.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is, because students have needs.
So then in your professional life, you're actively engaging in the way the funding works, and then you're taking the knowledge you're getting there and you're bringing it to our school board as well. So you're kind of seeing how the fund works from both directions.
Yes. Yes, and that's very interesting. And I do share a lot of the knowledge that I get at work with the school district here. They don't have a lot of staff because they're so small. And I also rely very heavily on my experience in human resources. And I've given them a lot of advice on job descriptions. I've had them change job descriptions because there were things in there that
I've been at meetings when you've been at, yeah.
Yeah. I think we are. I have enjoyed this.
Did you have anything you want to add at the very end here, like any sort of like an outgoing, statement or anything you want to? I asked that.
I don't have a website. I don't.
So you want everyone to look you up on Facebook and friend you?
No, I want them to email me
You have
at my
signs, right?
school district email address, which is slampel@sjcoe.net. Okay? Right through the school district website, and that's the best way to contact me. Board members are only as powerful as the full board, because we are one vote each. So if you are, and like I said, when we started, that we have a really good board and we talk to each other and we listen to each other because we all have different knowledge bases. Most often, we are a 5-0 vote, which is, it shows unity because we do listen to each other. But I have no problem being a dissenting vote, and I've done that once when I could not support the direction that the rest of the board was going, because professionally I knew that we were doing something. It wasn't a big deal. What we were doing was not correct in my professional opinion. So I think I may have been the only 4-1 vote in the past 2 years.
I mean, I think it's important to have some dissonance on a board anyway. So I mean, I appreciate you
Yeah.
standing by, what you felt was the right thing as opposed to just going along it. I know you're saying the 5-0 vote is because everyone talks to each other and everyone likes each other and everyone just agrees. Like, when I've talked to them, I probably can get the 5 of us in this room to agree on some subjects. So I would imagine that always getting a 5-0 vote seems like...
And I know it can look to the public
Kind of what it looks
that
like.
we're not doing anything and we're just passing whatever the superintendent
looks like
wants.
that.
But no, I've heard that. I
Okay.
have actually heard that. when we get our board packets, and we do have a good board that really reads their packets in depth, we're asking the superintendent questions before we get there. Now, if you watch, whenever there's an HR thing, they all look at me,
Which would make sense.
Yeah.
It'd be sort of strange if they looked at Matt.
Yeah, really. So we are getting things answered, and very often you'll see that something is being changed, and that's because of the feedback that the board has given when that comes out. So that's why it gets to a 5-0. And that's also, now we're not communicating about these things with each other,
I was gonna say
because
that.
that would be a Brown Act violation.
Right.
No, what I do is I email the superintendent and I copy the board president, because he needs to know the direction, because he has to lead that meeting. I don't copy anyone else, and I don't talk to anyone else about it. It's just two board members, that's perfectly legal.
Right.
So, and I know other board members are doing the same. Are they copying the board president? I have no idea,
Right.
because they're not copying me, so I don't know.